Tom Matthews from Matthews Engineering, showing the spindle brake modification that's available on MatthewsEngineering.com for the TL series of Haas lathes. So what this does is it allows you to apply a static brake on the spindle. So this spindle is free to move, and now when the brake's engaged here with a button on the control panel, this can either be engaged through M code or by pressing this button. In either case, the button lights red to let the operator know that the spindle brake is engaged. This is a static spindle brake, so it's for holding the spindle still for live tooling operations or for broaching keyways on the spindle. Or what I like it for especially is when I go to change my chuck. I'm putting a torque wrench in these screws here, and I want to turn the chuck, and it's always spinning around, and all I have to do now to hold it still is hold the brake down, and it holds it very firmly. So let's look next at the how this would work through M code, and then I'll show how what the brake installation looks like, and what the actuator looks like that goes into the control cabinet. Okay, this is what the G code looks like to operate the Matthews Engineering TL-brake. So all we're doing here is calling a subroutine 10 times. Here's the subroutine, and then of course this code could be used in your code anywhere, but in this example I'm turning the spindle on. This lathe has 3,000 RPM spindle, so I want to prove that the spindle can stop in time before the brake is applied. We just let the spindle run for 2 seconds, a GO4 delay, 2 seconds. And then, so this block of code is the recommended code for engaging the Matthews Engineering TL-brake. And what this code does is it calls a orient spindle command. You could put an M05 in front of this stop spindle, but orient spindle contains an implied stop spindle M05, and then orients the spindle. The benefit of using orient spindle, and you always want to use orient spindle before applying the brake, is on the TL1 and the TL series. This will ensure that the spindle has come to a full stop before the brake is applied. The Matthews Engineering spindle brake is a static brake. It can tolerate a small amount of dynamic action, but what you want to do is let your VFD in the controller do the dynamic braking, and then the spindle brake is there only to hold the spindle firmly still for broaching operations, live tooling operations, and other spindle automation that you might want to do. And of course you could orient your spindle to any angle you want and then apply the brake, and it'll be held firmly in that condition. So this is going to do that. It's going to run and stop, brake, and wait 2 seconds. And then to release the brake, so M69 P90 is the first relay on my expanded relay bank. Depending on which relay you install this on, your M code here will be different. You know, if you're using the built-in M codes that come with the Haas, this could be like an M51 and an M61. But in this case, I'm using the expanded M codes, so that's why I have the M69 and the M59. M59 turns the brake off. Matthews Engineering recommends a 1 second delay before allowing the program to proceed so that the brake is certainly to be released. And when the brake is engaged by M code, the red light will also activate. We'll show that here in a second. Okay, let's go ahead and run this code, and you'll see what it does here is that the spindle runs 3,000 RPM, comes to a stop, orients, and then the brake is applied. Let's watch it again. Okay, so now I'm going to change it just so it'll be a little quieter. One thing nice about using the M19 is that the amount of time that an M05 takes to stop is widely variable. It could be as long as 5 seconds, but if you use the M19 Orient, you'll always guarantee that the spindle is fully stopped before the brake is applied. Very important. Let's go ahead and restart that. And now it's doing it at 100 RPMs and applying the spindle. But notice it can apply it much faster because it doesn't need as much time to wait for this to wind down and to be certain it's stopped. The brake can tolerate some dynamic use, but it will wear the shoes out, and so you want to let your VFD do the dynamic braking, and the spindle brake is there for static braking to hold the spindle firmly still for automation operations. So what makes this work? So in the control cabinet, and this is included with your kit, is the Matthews Engineering Pneumatic Actuator. And so since we're still looping that spindle brake operation, you can see it pulling the cable. This is pretty easy to install. All you have to do is drill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. There's 4 screws holding this assembly in, and one hole for the cable assembly that comes out the side there through a cable gland. All cabling and wiring is included. Instructions are included. There's a M-code relay that, in my case, I have it going over here to the expanded M-code card, but this will also work with any open M-code relay. And then the push button switch, the lighted push button that we saw, wires in right here, and this wiring assembly and the push buttons included as well. The push button will light red whether it's actuated by manually pushing the button or by M-code, so that's a good safety feature because you don't want to proceed, if the brake was applied, you wouldn't want to proceed with the spindle operation. Next, we're going to look here at let's go over here and look inside the cabinet here. I'm going to show you what's inside that comes with the kit. Okay, let's take a look at what goes in under the cabinet to make the Matthews Engineering TL-brake option work. All the normal screw holes are still available. I've already removed these screws just to make it come out, make the spindle cover come off easily. Your drip patch still will work fine when the brake's installed, and the normal access to the spindle is all the same as you would expect. Let's go ahead and remove the cover here. Again, these other screws I already removed a few minutes ago here. And we'll take a look at what's in here. Now I have this set up to be actuating the brake automatically every 2 seconds, so you can see the spindle brake being actuated and released there. And this frame is included with the kit, the caliper, the custom rotor, brake rotor, the bolt pattern that you'll need to add this to the side of the spindle, and all the cabling is included and attach points. And so the cable here runs out the bottom of the lathe casting over to the control cabinet to the actuator, pneumatic actuator that we showed you earlier. So that's available on matthews-engineering.com, and it's TL-brake for Haas TL series lathes.